Welcome to the Collingwood Cant.
I have an incredible sense of deja vu.
I'm Sly.
And I'm How Can We Be Lovers If We Can't Be Friends, Spook.
Spook!
Yes!
Let's start from the very beginning.
Again?
Yes. It's almost like we had tech problems. Premiership flag unfurling.
That's unheard of, having tech problems on this show.
Premiership flag unfurling.
Did we achieve that, did we?
Yeah.
I must have blinked and missed it.
It was scheduled for 6:16.
6:16. Do you know why?
16 flag?
Oh, I imagine that must have been the only reason. Well, where'd the 6 come into it?
I don't know.
Sexy time?
Then they pushed it forward to 6:24 because of a groundswell of dissonance from the supporter base.
Did they have time for Welcome to Country, though?
I don't know. But we ran a poll, surprisingly, on our X account.
How do you do that?
It's an option on X.
Did you stumble upon this as a feature of X?
I was doing it previously, but...
Do they do any other countries, or just polls?
No, just polls. And we asked people, should the club have moved the unfurling to later?
And what did the masses say?
Over 87%.
Over 87%?
Over 80%.
So what, 87.5 or
said
88%? Was it 88%?
No, it was just under 88. Said they should have moved it.
If that poll hit 88, we would have
Yeah.
seen some serious shit.
That would have been good. So the bulk of supporters, because all the supporters voted.
Do you think they're the ones who actually didn't make it to the ground in time?
I don't know. But anyway, I mean, there was quite a bit of, disappointment from supporters and members going, look, I can't make it by that time.
Before the game or after the game?
No, both. But, pre-game, it was a case of, why are you doing it so fucking early?
It's a baffling one, I've got to say.
And I'd understand it if it was this spectacular showcase.
Well, wasn't it? Wasn't there showgirls? Was there... Well, we don't actually do that sort of thing anymore. No. Was there fireworks?
Well, you can't. It was fucking still day.
Was there day works?
You know what it fucking looked like? It looked like, when you go on YouTube and 6 people are cosplaying and making a fan film of like a DC or Star Wars property.
Like the Rant?
No, a fan film. It was that underwhelming, that hollow, that nothing. It just felt so empty and purposeless.
Well, I had a couple of nice columns of the previous cups. I mean, it was essential they were obviously there. There was some ex-players, past players standing around some cardboard cutouts of the year. It went on a wire and went up there, and about 8 people saw it.
So, what the fuck's the club doing? What was the purpose of having it at that time?
I don't know. I actually don't know.
Just think it through. Just think it through, mate. In jokes.
No, I mean, every other club, every other year pretty much runs it that close to the game start to I suppose, gee up the crowd and all that. There must have been madness in their method. However, the club chose not to share it with anyone why they were doing it.
Why would they?
So I guess we can only guess.
So you look at some of the things the club's done just in the last few months. Take the Steps documentary, cinematic release. I know there were some people who sort of said, well, what about members who can't, or supporters who can't afford to fucking be going to the cinema?
Because there is a cost of living crisis going on.
Well, there is a cost of going to the cinema and watching, whatever you're going to watch.
Well, there's a crisis there, but it's not about living.
Well, that's Hollywood. And I know people can just wait until it hits Channel 7 at 11:50 p.m. or, it hits one of the streaming platforms. I mean, Jeff Brown actually said, it came second behind.
It was the number 2 grossing film for the week behind June 2.
Yeah, that's a shock.
Have you seen some of the shit that Hollywood's releasing? That's not an achievement.
But he also threw in a comment, we made money. And I was like, really? That's...
Did he actually say that?
He said that. He goes, we made money. He said it as a surprise. We actually made money. It was like, okay, I didn't realise that was the priority there. And it's great that you did it as a byproduct, but I would have thought serving your 19th... member, it would fucking have been better. The premiership pins, which I think were only handed out to people who fucking auto-renewed, so people who have been renewing otherwise, fuck them off. There was a practice game, I know, where the facilities weren't open a few weeks ago, and there was a lot of complaint there. What is the fucking club doing?
I don't know, it's almost like a little bit of contempt for the supporter base that it spent all that time pumping up. It feels a little bit off at the moment.
Oh, it feels terrible.
The pin thing, look, there is a bit of a cost of living crisis out there, and I'm sure the club's impacted. But look, I don't know the numbers, and I'm grossly speculating here. But, I remember going back to the AGM meeting after we won the flag in 10, and the talk was just about how much of an injection of money comes in after winning one of these. Isn't that the time where you've got those little, what would they be fucking worth? 20 cents or something made in China, those little pins? Surely you just give everyone to something. You just feed the masses. The movie thing is one thing or another. I mean, no one holds a gun to your head and makes you to go see it. But, they could have probably put a sort of public screening on somewhere, I guess.
Should have done that like at the...
What's your intent? Was it to share the behind the scenes and again, engage the 19th man or person or whatever we are, the 19th A? Or was it to make money? Because that's an odd statement coming out of that. And not giving everyone the pin. Again, it's obviously there to save a few dollars. And not putting the toilets on. Well, geez, we'd be fucked without toilets after the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Because they've given me the shits.
Yeah. It feels like, a couple of years ago, the club was shaken and they really reached out to their supporter base, and it feels like they've started to go, well, look, we're doing well. We don't really need the average punter's input. Let us just do what we're going to do. And money's going to be the priority. And I understand every club needs money. But having said that, it's the system of the AFL doesn't reward you for being rich. It actually handicaps you for being rich.
No, that's a problem.
So, you really, what are you going to do with all the fucking profit other than have it redistributed to all the other clubs? So, I actually really disappointed. I thought that flag unfurling was absolute shit.
Yeah,
that was one of the worst things I've seen since the last Disney Star Wars movie.
The optics on both were pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a good look. And it's a baffling thing. And it's one of those things that I guess if you had a really good reason for doing it, you've chosen not to share it. And I think that's alienated the base a little bit. Look, the thing is, you can't be so confident that even on the back of winning a flag, that you can take any action and not upset someone. And I think you've had a reasonable, I suppose, 87, 88%, made it clear in this instance that this wasn't a popular decision. Nobody sprinted away from work on Friday night or whatever and arrived to the ground en masse. Even that sort of says something. To do that unfurling to pretty much an empty stadium, which was always going to be the case, was a really strange decision.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out when there's a book released on it.
I mean, it's actually interesting too, because what we're expecting the members to do after the unfurling. So the unfurling is finished, and for the next 50, 60 minutes, they're just meant to sit around till the game starts, or they're meant to hit the bars and just keep drinking, or...
Well, surely Ash Johnson spent all that time having set shots.
Yeah.
Is he factoring in the rotation of the Earth, you think?
No.
Is the moon pulling on the ball when he has a kick?
Is that the moon? Is that the moon?
There's got to be a reason. But anyway, we've jumped ahead or jumped back or jumped somewhere.
With Ash, I think you're jumping sideways. Let's do the time warp again.
Or are you jumping at shadows?
Tom Mitchell managed after playing a whole 64 minutes against GWS. Craig McRae said, well, he could have played if he needed to, but we thought we'd give him the week off.
He had an owie on an ankle.
Yeah.
An ankle owie, he said it was.
And then after reading about how every individual player is having the best fucking preseason ever, Finley McRae, who they just pumped up, who missed the first game, was then brought in as sub.
Yeah, I don't get the treatment of that. This is a guy, I think, so they've extended his contract once.
Yeah.
And they've obviously done it, because he's been there for what, 48 years now? Mm-hmm. He's had two contract extensions, because he would have been there for 2 years, which I think you automatically get 2 years. Yep. Then you've got an extension, then they've given another extension. He was entertaining offers, I believe, from other clubs. He's had a ripper pre-season, misses selection round 1, and then comes on as super sub in this game. But again, it's something else that just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's strange you drop a midfielder and then you bring him in and then you just play him as a sub. And then, I don't know.
Who got subbed out?
Jeez, I think it was Ash Johnson.
Oh, really?
He's not entertaining anyone.
What are they managing with him this week?
I don't know. Looking at the game itself... All right, so pointed out by Gary.
Good friend of the Rant, Gary.
Yep, vote for him at the next election.
Which one's he again?
He's the tall one.
Aren't they all tall?
He's really tall. So he pointed out that after the longest season ever in last year, we're coming off the shortest break.
I went for 9 years the last season.
You know, and we agreed to that fucking opening round debacle against GWS, you know, round 0, whatever the fuck it was over there.
Yes, we did.
And as you pointed out, we're going to have 3 games in basically 12 days.
Yeah, there was 6-day breaks in between. And the Aints have 5 days in between their game. What the fuck is the AFL doing?
But surely...
Is there a cataclysm coming at the end of the year?
I don't know, but, you know, look, not everyone played that opening round, so surely the clubs were asked, are you willing to do this? I would have thought the club would say no.
What was the net result of it? I mean, Ralph Horowitz, I think, was tweeting today about the record numbers for opening round and all that sort of thing and saying, well, that's proof that round 0 was a success. But I still don't understand what the fucking point of it was.
I don't understand the point of it either. It was like a...
All you're doing is really slipshotting the competition. Are you extending the TV rights for a week or 2 outside the norm?
Well, it's fucking really dumb too, because you got clubs now who have a bye. So they've played 2 weeks and they've got to have a bye. And then there's other clubs who will have a bye over the next few weeks too. So you've mishmashed... I don't know if their intention was to give clubs more rest, but it would seem stupid to have a rest after 2 fucking weeks.
It doesn't make sense though if you're staggering the rests.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But it doesn't make sense if...
Because we come off a 6-day break, play Saints, then we travel up to Brisbane and play them, and they've had a bye this week. Or did they? I think, bye this week. So they've got a 12-day break.
And same with Carlton too. So if I was...
It's like the AFL are out to fuck us.
If I was supporting Carlton and, you know, we've won the first 2, I wouldn't want to break. Fucking, I'd want momentum to build. It's a really bizarre time to go, hey, you just started your season, now have a fucking break. It's like, you know, playing 64 minutes and being managed. I just find that ridiculous. And I don't know if the club agreed to this, because like I said, the opening round teams, they had to be asked, surely. Do you want to start a week earlier? Are you willing to start a week earlier? And again, I don't know if it was financially motivated. But I would have thought Collingwood should turn around and say, no, it doesn't fucking benefit us after coming off the grand final to be jumping into the season 1 week early, going into state, undermining our flag unfurling at 6:24. I would have thought the fucking first round should just be like, let's have it as late as fucking possible so you get the biggest rest possible, and let's do the flag unfurling at a reasonable time, like fucking 7:30 or whatever. Instead, it feels like every decision they made, and I'm pretty sure the AFL wasn't arbitrary and just said, this is the way it's going to be. I mean, the flag unfurling, it was funny too that sort of there was a bit of scuttlebutt that, oh, this is what the AFL's dictated. And then the AFL go, no, you can do what the fuck you want.
Yeah, that was another interesting thing. I'm glad you brought that one up because that was baffling.
Yeah. So all I'm just saying is...
Push me, shove you. Oh, yeah, says who?
Yeah, I'm sure the club would have had input into the way this season unfolds. And I reckon, like, just coming off that fucking flag win, you would have said, let's just get the biggest rest possible. Let's attack the season the most prepared we can possibly be, rather than, hey, let's go to fucking GWS for the week 1.
Well, yeah, and you look at Brisbane are 0-2 as well. They've started well in games and then completely fallen off a cliff. The last 2 rounds, it's not just, I think, exclusive to us.
But the interesting thing is what you brought up earlier is like, all right, but the Carlton's 2-0. GWS is 2-0, so they only had 1 week less.
That's where it falls apart. But I think, you know, there's probably a certain amount of leeway with playing in a grand final. It's a very probably draining experience. The week building up, the tension, the letdown for some, the elation for others, the celebration, that sort of thing. You just where the others just going straight on holidays, I imagine. There's probably some commitments. I think, yeah, look, and it's probably been, you know, penny ante stuff, but maybe it does add up. This is the worst. First time in the history of the VFL AFL that both teams that played in the grand final started 0-2. There's got to be some extenuating circumstances behind it. Extenuating. Is that the right word? Extenuating. Have you looked up what extenuating means?
No.
Because I don't know what it means either. It could be the word of the week.
Yeah, look. But the other thing to think about too is if there are extenuating circumstances as to why they started like this.
It's another level higher than extenuating.
When does it even out? When do Collingwood and Brisbane both go, oh, okay, I'm sort of caught up now? Or do they spend the next 4 weeks trying to fucking catch up to the fitness space?
I don't know. It's like you look at and just to go off on a tangent from a couple of years, it was Australia a couple of years from now, the Map of Tasmania side comes into the competition.
The Merkins.
The Merkins. That throws the even number
The Tasmerkins.
of teams out.
Yeah.
So that introduces then a whole bunch of buys. Is this like an entry into that sort of structure of how they think that seasons are going to play out? Is there any other sport in the world that has these interrupted rounds? Does
I don't know.
Premier League pretty much just fucking starts and goes for 98 weeks straight.
And
Don't
they
have
play the
breaks
FA Cup and that throughout.
Maybe they don't have breaks. Fuck if I know.
I mean,
Basketball's another one in the States.
Well,
hockey.
baseball and hockey.
Lacrosse. I don't think they ever stop playing.
Well, baseball and hockey play about 1,800 games in a season. I think, but with... Yeah, actually, I mean, basketball, they don't really rotate the fucking team that much. You're starting 5, you're starting 5. I don't know. The American sports, I don't fucking know.
No.
I don't know about
I don't think they know either.
But yeah, this would be the concern now. On, what was that new show called? Footy Furnace?
Footy Furnace.
Footy Furniture?
What was there another show about blow torches?
But they were just talking about, just Collingwood have a premiership hangover. Lee Matthews is like, well, I don't know, and Jimmy Bartell just go, well, look, they have played 2 really good teams.
And I think that's an exceptionally good point. It's extenuating circumstances that force them to say that.
But the thing is, again, at what point does that even out? Or does it even out? Do you, I remember in about, it was about 95 or something, I think. We played in Brisbane and it was played in 40-degree heat. Just wiped out the players. And I remember Lee Matthews going, it took him 8-9 weeks to actually get over that. And so the whole start of the season was just fucked by that. So if they're going to be spending the next 6 weeks catching up to some fitness base because either they don't have enough fitness or they're overtired or whatever the shit's going to be, it'd be really concerning that they didn't at some point say, hey, the club, what's best for us, rather than... Because it feels like they're financially motivated decisions.
Yeah. I was wondering this week, because I think I'm going to have a theory on everything every week about why we're struggling. Last week I suggest maybe they're tweaking the game plan, but that's clearly not the case. This week, I watched that Take the Steps on the
At the
weekend.
cinema?
No, because I went and saw June 2.
If you wanted to see Barren Wasteland, why don't you go to the flag unfurling?
Because I got this thing for giant worms. Dun-dun-dun. There's a point I was making. Now you've derailed me with your June
You went
comment.
and saw Take the Steps.
I watched Take the Steps, and there was a couple of things that sort of were said around that got me thinking.
Were they set around steps?
There was 2 interesting moments, and hopefully I remember them by the
2
time I made my
possibilities.
point. Well, I'll start with the one that was sort of probably not the prominent one, but there was a scene...
You'll probably forget by the time you get to it.
After they have won the prelim and they go down into the car...
They take the steps?
They take the steps down the car. Take the escalator, I think, is the sequel for next year.
They shortcutted the steps.
I remember more looking around going, why didn't we fucking take the escalator? But he sat in the car and he sort of slumped a bit and he goes, I think the weight of it all hit him. And then he started talking about, the effort that you drag yourself through to get to this point and how much it sort of hurt last year and when you lost and you think, I've got to do it again. Now, I don't think that's that thing that's going to stop them this year, but there must be an element of that where you look at where you are this season, you've been beaten by a couple of better sides. Do you start looking at yourselves going, have I got the energy to do this? Because, it's not a fait accompli that winning a flag guarantees you're going to make the next 7 unless you're Richmond, Geelong, Hawthorn,
Everyone but us.
And everyone but us. So there was that one that sort of got me thinking. The other one was around, and I knew I could only hold one of these things in my head at the time. What was the other one?
Do you ever follow a comedian?
No. I've got it now. It's like you sort of. I think when you look back on some of the games that we played last year, towards the tail end of the year, we only won 1 out of 4, and then we bounced by a kick through 3 finals and won a grand final. Whether they've looked at the fact that we're still stacked with Dad's Army, that these blokes probably part of the reason why, when we talked about it at the time, we thought it was a combination of geriatrics and training load, up in the training loads, all that sort of thing, to get them fitter to run out these games. That whether we've eased back on some of the fitness stuff now, then we'll gradually crank it up to manage some of the older guys to get through the end of the season and be able to have an impact then when it matters. Like McRae made a point in the presser today, Finn McRae, about this is all about qualifying. All you got to do is win enough games to make the finals, and then you can forge your own destiny. I don't think the plan is though is to fall into the 8 at the tail end, which is how things are going at the moment. But I'm pretty confident we'll bounce back from this. I hope sometime this year. But you wonder whether that sort of thing where you've actually, now that you know what that run looks like, whether you're readjusting the run to get there. It's a cliche, but it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. Did you ever follow the comedian Mitch Hedberg?
Who?
Mitch Hedberg.
He must be fucking hilarious.
He did pass away. He said an escalator can never break; it just becomes stairs.
That's profound. What was the funny part?
Well, the way he delivers it. I recall Robert Walls talking about Brisbane years ago and just saying, because they've been in finals consistently, like they've been in 4 grand finals. He goes, that's effectively an extra season that they've played on top of everything. So you do wonder if there's some wear and tear in the players. Like I said, there's a concern. Is it going to balance out? None of it seems to bother Nick Dacos, who's just been fucking dominant in both games.
He has.
Everyone else, I shouldn't say everyone else, but a lot of the other players haven't been at the levels they need to be. Guys like the Goey really need to fucking pick it up, because that side, and we've said it before, there's a lot of just, good players, role players and all that sort of stuff. If those guys aren't going, then the rest gets exposed. The defence is just fucking miles behind the ball carrier, or, who they should be minding. I mean, the amount of times Sydney went in and just found unopposed players was ludicrous.
And the turnovers.
Yeah, and the turnovers
in the
next
shit
thing.
end of the ground.
Yeah. And then their inefficiency moving forward. I mean, would a key forward ever work? Well, now we can speak about Ash Johnson. I said a key
clearly
forward.
The answer's no.
Do you think he actually has it to make it as a key forward? Because,
No.
Okay, what solves that question? What answers that question?
And look, you can only get so, and I think he's finding this out, you can only get so far on natural ability. There's a lot of other work you've got to do around that to win the ball, to get into the right position, and to give yourself a better than average chance of having a shot at goal. Like, I think where he's at right now is summed up with that one that he shanked and it went out in the full. That was terrible.
Yeah. I don't... Yeah, look, I mean, with key forwards, they do take longer, but geez, he's
going backwards, though. That's the problem. I think
I don't want to say his attitude, because his attitude might be right, but he doesn't seem to have a consistent level of intensity.
No.
And you see something like Myercheck, for example. I mean, so both Myercheck and Johnson came in as, mature age forwards. Myercheck, even though when he was just starting out, and again, he's an undersized guy playing as a forward, he was just constantly fucking at the ball, or constantly trying to get to the contest and all that. And you don't see that with Johnson.
Left everything out the ground.
Yeah, you don't see that with Johnson.
No.
And Johnson looks like the sort of guy who's probably just gotten this far in his career just on pure talent. But now he's in a league where, there's a lot of players there on pure talent.
And there's accountability.
So you need to find something extra, which is hard work and endurance and all that sort of stuff. So he's a massive concern. I know, like most people have written off Kruger. I'd really like to see him get a go if he can stay upright.
What was the injury this time?
Hammy.
He'd be, because he did that first pre-season game, second?
Yeah.
One of the two. He'd have to be close to...
I think it's training, yeah. So, I mean, I think Kruger's injuries are overrated. The first year he did a shoulder, and they tried to nurse him through it, and then he did it again, or he aggravated it, and it was like, well, it's not 2 injuries, it's the same injury that they tried to nurse him through. And last year when they brought him in when Cox and Cameron, and everyone was out. So they had to, have a tall in there, and they brought him in, and he was woefully underdone. I mean, we've noted that numerous times that, he doesn't really have great awareness for his own safety.
No.
But the one thing I do like about him is he hits packs. So I'd really like to see him get a run of it. He can stay upright. But that forward line just seems dysfunctional. I don't know how much throwing Schultz in has disrupted it, and there's no disrespect to Schultz, but you throw a new player in there, and they don't quite know each other's patterns and all that. That does take a little while to acclimate.
You see Elliott and Schultz as very similar type players, and I don't think there's room for the two of them in the forward line.
Yeah. Oh, look, we've talked about Ginnivan off screen. Ginnivan's an interesting one. It'd be really interesting to hear at some point why he's not there anymore, because
he looked fucking good in his first game for the Hawks.
It all goes back to, you lost senior players last year in Adams and Ginnivan. In the next 3-4 years, you're going to lose Pendles, Sidey, Howe, so you're going to lose a lot of these guys. I would have thought Ginnivan was an investment in the future. And Collingwood had the whip hand because he was contracted. So they could have, whether he wanted to leave or they pushed him out, I would have thought they just said, look, here's a replacement for the future. Unless something so egregious has happened behind the scenes that they've just had enough. But from what Claynor said, it really seemed that the club just decided, let's put him on the table. I mean, the other thing that concerns me too, and this is sort of going away from the game, trading Ginnivan, what they're trading for about pick 116. This is a guy that you've put 3 years into, and then you've paid a first and a second round pick for Schultz. Annabelle on the bulletin board, who's really an astute observer of football, she made a really good point, just saying, if you were to say, hey, we're going to give up a first and second round pick for a player, would Schultz have ever entered your calculations?
No.
So that's actually a really good point, and it feels like Collingwood, they just sort of, with their trading, they go, look, whatever we have to pay, we'll pay. We'll fix it up later. But they're constantly playing catch-up. And
what would you say your pass mark for Schultz will be at the end of the year? Because you've brought him in, like he's kicked 36, 37 goals.
He was on about 90 tackles last year, so...
Yeah, so there's obviously a bit of offensive pressure there. But so he's on 3 goals, I think, now for 2 games. If he finished the season on 40 and did become quite an offensive forward, would you be happy?
I'm never happy.
You're never happy.
I'm a wog. We never experience happiness. Why would we start now? Look, I mean, ultimately, you have to look at that one retrospectively when you finish this up.
Well, no, it's a hypothetical.
Yeah. But I remember Mick Malthouse was talking about, like, when Barry Hall was going to leave the Saints and Collingwood, I think, inquired and secured the one at a draft pick and Prestigiacomo. And Malthouse is going, well, you're basically giving up 20 years of footballers for, 6-7 years of service or whatever. So Schultz, they're giving up 2 draft picks. So they're giving up quite a bit. You'd have to give quite a bit over a long period. It's not just going to be one season. He's going to have to be a really good forward. And I think that, look, I'm not the only one. I think they gave up way too much for him. I mean, that's moving away. I'm not blaming him for the loss. I'm just saying dropping him in there. Obviously, these guys all got to have to get used to how they're going to play.
Yep.
It happened last year anyway when they were bringing McStay back and sort of Mychek felt like he was getting squeezed out. But in terms of their synchronicity, I mean, there's that damning Fox footy when they were fucking high-fiving in the middle of the ground when no one's near the fucking ball. It's really embarrassing. They seem like a step off the pace. They seem like they're pretty flat. And the thing with Sydney, we were down by about 9 goals almost at one stage. That could have been a lot uglier. And I think both games have flattered us because at the end, both Sydney and GWS, they took the foot off the pedal. And so we kicked some junk time goals. I think both those teams could have easily beaten us by 10 goals. And they didn't. And the other thing, the defence, we've mentioned, but you look at, like, both teams have actually kicked bags or had players who kick bags against us. So that defence is not knitting at all.
No, it's a big lump of Swiss cheese.
I mean, what do you think of Charlie Dean?
Oh, look, it's his only second game, coming off about 19 years of injuries.
That's a shock at Collingwood.
It's probably getting to the point. Look, if Murphy was fit and firing, you drop Dean at a heartbeat. Let him go back and build some games in the VFL. I don't think it's going to hurt him, though, playing a few games.
I don't want him playing a few games, but the whole defence is not working.
But it's not just him that's the
what I said.
problem. It's all over the fucking shop.
I
mean, their covering of Sydney's forwards is deplorable.
I mean, the Murphy thing, look, I don't think Murphy's going to last a year.
No,
I think he'll just take a hit and then knock you as contest, and that'll be it. And I don't, if he's at that level where they're sort of really easing him back into it, it's not going to improve. You saw with Paddy McCartan, I mean, Sydney got, about a season and a half out of him, and then there was a hit, and that was it. And he'd gotten a few hits along the way. So, obviously, there's certain players who are very vulnerable to concussion, and quality of life is much more important than, football and all that sort of stuff. So, if I was Murphy and it's at that much of a risk, I would just be saying, well, I would love to play, but the physical reality is my body, and particularly my head's not up to it anymore.
No. Look, I can understand at the moment he's giving himself every chance. And look, I mean, there's going to be no cure. There's no magical solution for him. He just has to avoid getting hit in the head.
Ever.
But, you sort of figure that's just... the outcome there's inevitable. It's just a matter of when.
When. I mean, you look at guys like Angus Brayshaw, McCartan. I mean, there's players in the past, Liam Picken. I remember Chad Rintle was like that too. For whatever reason, they're very vulnerable to concussion. So you're better off getting out rather than facing, the rest of your life with headaches and, issues with lights and all that sort of stuff. And that's more important. His quality of life's fucking a lot more important than Collingwood. I'd rather they just went with Frampton. When I find it a little bit odd that, hey, they recruited this guy, they brought him down, and they've really sort of just kept him on the outer, except, when this break glass is needed. I'd rather they play Frampton at full back, and then they let Moore play the Murphy role of more of the sweeper, and let, Frampton handle the big heavy grunts.
Yep.
And he's done the right. I remember last year, the first time we played Richmond, he killed Tom Lynch. So I'd rather they rejigger it like that. Unfortunately, Howe's, getting on, and we've been saying that for about 3 years and all that sort of stuff, but it's a really hard defence to rejig because you already lost one of the key defenders. One of the other ones in Howe, you don't know how he's going to come up after niggles and age and all that sort of shit, so it's a really hard one to juggle.
Yeah, and Moore's down on output as well.
Moore's been terrible. Well, except his kicking's been great, but just for Sydney. Some of that kicking was...
It was turnover central.
It was horrible. And the midfield really needs to stand up. I mean, look, I thought Lipinski was terrible again. Nick Dacos has been brilliant. De Goey is the other elite player there, and he really needs to pick up his output. There's no doubt he has the ability and all that sort of stuff. Tom Mitchell, I think he's pivotal to that side, given the way it's functioning away from, moving away from stoppages and that sort of stuff. But there's too many players who are just really, I don't want to say average, but they're having a really average output.
Yep.
And you're relying still on Pendles and Sidey and that to have, big game. Josh Dacos is another one who really has to stand up. Any final thoughts about this game?
No, I think we just move on.
I wish I could just erase it from my memory with beer.
There's a thought.
Yes.
Why don't we give that a try?
We should. Playing the Saints this week. They just lost to the Cats last week.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't looked that bad under Lyon. They got some, weapons there. If we lost this, it would be 0-3.
It's not a good look.
And I think it would be a really hard assignment to go up to Brisbane and win that.
That's a problem.
On the flip side...
We don't have an easy draw. We've got a couple of patches there where we have some opponents we should well and truly beat. But I think it's important that we start accruing a couple of wins now, especially if this charge thing is going to be a late one. Look, I'd almost say this is a must-win game.
It is a must-win game. I don't think they can rely on going, winning 12 straight or something if they're going 0-4.
No.
I mean, the other thing too is you play Saints and you play Brisbane. I don't know who the fuck's next. Or if it wouldn't be Anzac Day, that's another week away or something.
No, there's I think one more.
Yeah, so I don't know who the fuck that is, but Essendon won't be easy beats either. So you're looking at a really tough draw. And really the way they're playing, I wouldn't trust them against anyone. And
not at the moment, no.
And
I don't think we're as bad as we look.
My concern's more...
But you've got to turn it around.
My concern more is, in both games, they've started really...
more.
Yeah, my concern's more. My concern is in both games, they've started pretty well in the first quarter, and then they've just nosedived.
But that's what Brisbane's done as well.
Oh, this is what I'm saying. That's my concern. Is that?
No, and the thing is, and it's the same concern if you were on the Brisbane rant this week, is that that sort of behaviour isn't sustainable for long, because you're just going to keep slipping back down the pecking order, and to climb is going to get harder and harder. There's some good sides running around at the moment, whether they last or not. There are some good sides out there.
Well, the only side I'd feel confident against right now is West Coast here.
Here at Rant HQ?
Here in the studio, yeah. That's the only team I think we could really beat 100%. I wouldn't trust us against Hawthorn. I wouldn't trust us against North.
No.
So,
and they pushed us in the past when they're shit.
Hawthorn beat us last year and North's pushed us. So I just think the way we're playing and the way we're not really sustaining intensity throughout a whole game, and you can see that spark is just missing. There's nothing happening. It's like they're always just one step off the pace.
Yeah, I mean, if you're flat, it ain't going to come back in a week.
No, but this is the thing I'm saying is I don't think there's any easy beats for us right now, except for West Coast to be the only one here.
Well, can we play them 28 times this year?
Well, the way the AFL fixtures games, I wouldn't be surprised if you could. Maybe we can play them in -1 round. What are your thoughts in terms of tips?
Aints by 10 goals.
I'll tip us by 13 points, but I'm not really confident. I think
It'll be a slog. I don't think Lions playing that fast-running, attacking style of football at the moment. They're very defensive-minded. It'll be a slog, but that actually may suit us because we're not scoring very well either at the moment. It could be one of the world's most boring games of football.
speaking to one of my cousins, and he posed moving more forward. Would you consider that?
It just leaves a massive hole in defence. Who's
I don't
coming
think-
in?
I don't think that's changing. I think that's.
Look, I think there's every chance he could be swung this week.
Yeah, if nothing else, I'd bring him a lot further forward. Like I said, I'd play Frampton at the back and play more higher up to sort of do a lot more of the sweeping. I think it's stupid that when Moore actually takes the best forward, because you want him to be doing the intercepting and shit like that. You know, if you look at like the great coaches like Clarkson and, you know, with Josh Gibson, he never played him on anyone. He always sort of played him as the third or fourth defender so he could intercept and shit like that. Anyway, all right, so anything else before we sign off?
No, make sure you miss. Give it the best Ash Johnson you have.
That'll be it from us.
And that'll be it from Ash.
Subscribe, like, tell your friends.
And if you can't do that, like, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Or just tell your friends to subscribe and like. Later.
Goodbye. Let me have a go.